Hey everyone, it's James Veigli. Welcome to another episode of the MBA podcast. And it's episode 160. I said last week, I love round numbers. So 160. We're talking today about extracting expertise out of your head and your team's head. Super important topic. We've probably talked about it a number of times on this podcast before, Ash, but this is one that is crucial to every one of our listeners. So we're going to approach it again. But how you doing, my friend?
I am doing great. I'm really excited by the round number. You know, it's we do tend to nerd out on round numbers, don't we, James? Episode 160. And I really like this topic. Well, I don't just like it. I'm very passionate about this topic because this is one of the most common and frustrating and stress-inducing challenges that I see mortgage brokers facing, and that is, oh, my team always need me to come in and fix stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I hired them to fix stuff, and yet they keep coming to me to fix it. Well, how do you resolve that? Well, this is a key part of it.
It is. And I'm guessing most of our listeners have started down this rabbit hole a little bit. I don't think anyone has been hiding under a rock, Ash, long enough and is oblivious to using systems and processes and checklists and pieces of technology to essentially make the job easier and make sure you don't miss things, right? So we're not necessarily talking about building systems and process because that's like a broken record terminology. I'm almost, I know it's so valuable, but every time I hear the systems and processes thing, I think people use it a bit flippantly at the moment. I think the industry doesn't even at times realize the importance of it, or almost trivializes it. It's, yeah, I know I've got to build my system and process. We probably hear that from every single person that comes through the door. I've got to build my system and process. But how the heck do we do that? Like, that's not just, oh, I'll sign up for this piece of tech, or I'll map this out, or I'll start making a few email templates. Like, it's not that at all. Like, that's the 101 baby version of what creating a business system is about. So let's talk a little bit about the importance of extracting all the expertise and not just filling out some templates and, you know, basic business flow systems. And then we can sort of share how we do it in our business and how we teach our members. So let's start there, Ash, in terms of let's let the genie out of the box, so to speak. And when we say systems and process, let's, you know, kind of like the iceberg where most people think systems and processes is the little tip, but what we're talking about is the 80% underneath. There's a lot more to this.
Maybe we'll have a rule in James, that every time one of us mentions systems and processes, we have to donate $100 to charity, right?
Yeah,
something like that. But look,
mm-hmm.
I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about the mindset that's required. I want to almost just take a slight step back before going forward. You know, and it's, you know, as a mindset of a business owner, you know, I would ask all of our listeners to ask themselves, you know, do they regard themselves as a watchmaker or do they regard themselves as a beekeeper? These are the two types of mindsets in business. Now, the watchmaker is dealing with an inanimate object, right? Making watches very precise, and everything's got its place, but nothing happens if you don't intervene, right? The watchmaker has to do everything, right? So that is a controlled, precise, nothing happens if I don't intervene and make it happen. As opposed to the beekeeper, who recognizes that his role or her role is to create a framework and an environment that is most conducive to bees making honey, but recognizing that they can't directly get involved in everything. So they've got to create a culture that the making of honey is easy for the bees, right? So that's one thing I want listeners to take away is, and the evidence and the research and our work shows conclusively that the mindset of a beekeeper is the one that you want, right?
Mm.
So one of the things that's a key part of this, right, is the recording of yourself doing things. Because this is one of the things I think I mentioned I hear a lot is, oh, you know, I've hired people and, you know, I've told them what they have to do. And then I try to go away and then the phone's always ringing and I've got to keep going in and fixing things. And I'm like, well, why is that happening? So part of what's got to happen here is empowering people to come up with their own solutions, which sounds obvious, right? But how do they do that? Well, one of the simplest and most powerful ways to at least start doing that is to start recording yourself solving problems. It's a great way to get things out of your head, and you start to build up a reserve of resources that when a team member comes up against a specific challenge, problem, or obstacle, they, instead of ringing you or a supervisor, they go to the video. Let's go to the video, right? Which is, do we have a pre-recorded example of the boss or the owner solving this problem or dealing with this situation that I can go to? So one, it does release you, the founder, from being on call for everything. Two, it breeds a culture of independent problem solving, right? Which is what you want. That's the beekeeper mentality. You're fostering an environment where the bees, your workers, your team, can solve their own problems in order to make honey, which is obviously writing loans and getting yourself on video one at a time. Like, you might end up with 100 videos, you might end up with 10, but you've got to start with one. Right. So this is something that we coach and train a lot with our clients, right, James, is once we get to a little bit of the setting up of strategy and structure, it's like, well, now let's start to build a resource bank that people can be directed to solve problems. Right. And once they've done it once or twice by watching the video, guess what? They probably don't need to go to the video. They probably know how to solve the problem. Whereas in the past, they don't learn how to solve it themselves. What they learn is, if I ring Ash, he'll help me solve it. That's not a good thing to have in your business.
Yeah, that's not a business system. That's like, I think as you were talking, I was thinking to myself, most people think of systems and processes, as I mentioned before, as a few email templates and a bit of a flow for their loan process. Like, that is going to make sure you get all the steps done the right way, and it'll shortcut, you know, a fact find request. It'll shortcut writing an email repetitively. That's sort of basic stuff. But if you don't fully extract all of your expertise, then all we've really got is our systems, is some flowcharts and some checklists and a few email templates. Like, the real stuff that's going to drag that broker back into their business system are the nuance around the loan process. And the only way to really train your team on that stuff is to do it live, right? You know, record the screen or record you doing something live, running training sessions with them, actually investing the time to making things faster and more powerful. It just occurred to me as you were talking that I think the word systems and process is a little bit like I need to get a website, like it was in the 90s or 2000s, when everybody in the 90s and early 2000s was like, oh, I better get my website up and running. And then later in the noughties, or probably in the early 2010s, Ash, it was, oh, you got to be on social media. You got to have a Facebook page. Everybody's obsessed with it. I think the 2020s in the mortgage industry is this obsession with systems and process, yet not really even understanding why or what that means and how to do it effectively, other than everyone just sitting around at PD days and networking events talking about, yep, got to get my business systems and process. And that's why I guess I'm harping on about this and probably rehashing what I said 5 minutes ago, in that, like, your systems and process, a bit like a website isn't just a website, it serves a function. Being on social media isn't just being there, it should serve a function. And your systems and process in your business shouldn't just be some email templates so that you don't have to write the email twice. It should be a complete engine that can run without you. Like, nothing ever drags you back in, because the system and the process and the training and all that expertise is literally extracted from your head to the point where your team do not need you at all, because you've extracted it you've transferred it, and you've then armed them with the ability to self-solve. And you're driving a culture of a business and a team. So this runs deep. Rant over, I'll hand it back to you, and we can sort of dive into this in more detail.
Well, what a great rant. You've also just raised $800 for charity, by the way. Well done. Anyway, we like to have fun listeners, right? And look, James is right. I mean, we have been teaching systems and processes to our clients for years, right? And the industry is catching on and going, oh, everyone's got to have systems and processes. Well, they're right. But you know what? It's a piece of the puzzle. If it was as easy as just saying, here's a pro forma system and process for you, everyone would buy it off the shelf and be running super successful, happy businesses. That's not how it works, right? There are multiple moving parts, customization, organizational structure, strategy, you know, in order for you to become that beekeeper. You know, otherwise, if you are a watchmaker, guess what? You know, if something doesn't work with the watch, there's only one person who can come in and fix it, and that's the watchmaker. And I reckon a lot of brokers were not intentionally have ended up as watchmaker type mindset, right? And a big part of this is starting to shift towards, well, what is it about that beekeeper mindset? It's about setting everything up and fostering a culture and an environment where making honey is efficient, organized, reliable, and the bees know what to do, right? Mm-hmm. You know, your job is to create the environment and to lead, you know, like is to organize the hives, organize the flowers, organize the safe environment so that they can go and do their work. That's what leadership is. Leadership's not being a watchmaker and saying, hey, I make an amazing watch, I'll fix everything. Now, I would argue, James, that a lot of our listeners, that's not how they actually think. What happens is in the absence of a better way, that's where we all fall into. That's the default. And I see this a lot. And it's very common with very successful brokers, if I'm being honest, like, you know, that do good volume, but it's because they're fantastic watchmakers, right? So actually pulling them away from that into a new mindset takes time and effort. And then we start to go, well, where does the role of getting everything out of your head fit in? Which is what we're sort of, the thread through this, right, James, is using the recording of yourself doing things as one of the pieces of input into setting up this environment and fostering that independent problem-solving, honey-making environment, right? Mm-hmm. Well, yep. A big part of this is getting everything out of your head. Get it out of your head. Every single little thing that we help you design on your workflow, like this task, this task, this task, this. It's not one big video where you're fixing everything, right? It's multiple 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 minute videos that you can just record, set up in an environment, and bring your team on board on how to turn to that as a resource. And very quickly they become self-propelled rather than dependent on the watchmaker.
Yeah, I like the analogy of the beekeeper and the watchmaker. And you're right, most brokers and even the successful ones who think they have a business system are probably just very, very good watchmakers. And they'll recognize this when they go away for 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And things start to stop working very quickly. There's obviously a lot to this, and I like that we're attacking it from different angles because, you know, it's extracting expertise in brackets yourself and others, because it's not just about you being the center, like, you know, you, our listeners, the broker, you being that expert center of the business and needing to get it all out of your head. That's one part of it. And using things like recording yourself and building systems out of those recordings is one part. But as Ash said, it's that cultural shift of everyone in your team extracting their expertise. Like, this is something we do in our business, Ash, it's not just James extracts his expertise and other people follow. It's every person in our business knows that it's up to them to build a system or a process that's repeatable without them. So whether it's me or another person in our team, there's no process that is done without following a system or a process. So the complete cultural shift And when you can get that happening in a business, it accelerates the building of the business system, because it doesn't have to be the broker doing everything. Like, the broker needs to get everything out of their head. So let's say you've got an amazing power broker or a processor or an office manager or somebody in your team, maybe even someone that's in admin and marketing and doing a lot of the back end stuff with your social medias and your communications. Like, they need to extract their expertise as well, so that the business isn't relying on them as well. So that's taking this one step further, Ash. Most brokers would be listening to this going, yep, I know I need to build a system of process so that I don't have to do all the work. Let's take it to the nth degree and go, we need to extract expertise from everyone in our team, because the engine of a business should not rely on anybody, not just the key broker, anybody. And if we aim for that, then we're going to have something way more efficient and powerful and valuable.
Oh, guess how much more valuable your business becomes when you've got everything, not just documented, you've got everything recorded on how to do things. Now, this takes time, right? As your business grows beyond just you and just one team member and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. And it's reiterative, right? It's always optimizing, right? So this is something that you're continually looking to record new things, to expand your resource base as your business expands and new roles come on board. For example, what could I pick out? You might be building your business around the front end loan processing, and you built a team of 2 or 3 or 4 people to really be efficient about doing your 8 or 10 mil a month. But at a later date, you go, you know what? I really need to get someone in post settlement to look after my database. A portfolio manager or a CSM. So you haven't got a resource base for that person yet. So you hire a person in, but what I would be advising is, when you hire that person in, you might have some of those things recorded, but a lot of it is part of the job will be they start recording the things that they start doing in a new role, right? This is the thing. New roles come along in your business where you haven't recorded things for. But as you said, James, over time, you end up with a fully fledged structure with the role of leader, brokers, admin, credit, processing, support, marketing. Ultimately, all of these things have a written and recorded how to do structure that becomes timeless. Like, your people can come and go. Like bees, I don't know whether our listeners are going to be happy with me likening them to bees. I apologise, listeners. Well, you may not be the bees, you may be the queens or the kings. I'm not sure, but the metaphor is solid, and that is that when the systems and processes are there, new bees can come in, new workers can come in, and you can hire people that can hit the ground running to do the job, right? Because it's all there to follow, right? And the moment you hire them, day one, they don't need to be ringing the boss on how to do things. What a fantastic place to be. And we've got a lot of members who've reached this state, but very few start there. In fact, I would argue, I don't know, James, in the several hundred clients that we've worked with over the last few years, I could count them on maybe 1 or 2 hands that start day one with a lot of this in place. And even those that have, a lot of it needs recalibrating, because it's been built around people and it takes the shape of the people, which is not right. The people need to take shape to the role, not the other way around, right? So there's always a lot of work to untangle those ones and I guess restructure them more effectively. So no matter where you are, right, you could be just a 1-person broker business, or you might have a team of 15 people, right? This is valid, and shift your mind from, no matter where you are in the life cycle of being a broker, shift your mind to that beekeeper mindset. I don't make all the honey. My job is to create and foster a culture where making honey is what we do, but I don't make all the honey. Not like a watchmaker who makes all the watches, right? Without the watchmaker, there ain't no watches getting made, right? But in a hive, honey gets made even if 1 or 2 things come and go, when the beekeeper doesn't make the honey. So I really want people to take that away and think of themselves as, I'm the beekeeper. My job is to create the environment and foster it so that making of honey is what results.
That is a very good summary in itself. We could probably look to wrap it up there. I mean, you know, extracting expertise, listeners, it's a critical part of what we do. As brokers, we want to be out there doing deals and talking to customers, but the most valuable thing you can be doing is actually getting other people to do that with and for you. And the only way that you're going to do that is by spending time extracting your expertise into systems and repeatable processes and trainings. And yes, that's about recording yourself. It's about being a good leader. But I think it starts with having that mindset, as Ash said, of becoming the beekeeper and knowing that your number one job is to make sure that, well, bee gets made. Ash, don't even know what I'm talking about. Honey gets made without you having to be there or not. So keep the mindset, listeners, of making things easier and faster every day, doing it once if you can, training someone else so that someone else knows how to do this, getting it out of your head, recording a video, training someone, get them to look over your shoulder. Always challenge you and challenge all your team to be extracting their expertise into systems and processes. And yeah, you will have a very good honey making factory if you focus on doing this over a couple of year period.
Love it. Well, there's a brand for someone's mortgage business. I don't know whether any of your listeners out there have got a mortgage business, something to do with bees, but anyway, you heard it here. It's a great mindset to take away, James. And you know that doesn't matter where you are. Like, start with recording one thing. Like, if you haven't done any of this, start with just recording one task. It's very easy. The technology is very easy, but it's actually getting started, right? And if you're not sure where to start, well, of course, pick up the phone and call us, and we'll help you figure all this out.
100%. Thanks, Ash. This one's been fun, as always. The big, you know, watch this again, listen to this again, listeners, because it's that important. But hope you're having a fantastic day or night wherever you are in the world. And Ash and I are looking forward to seeing you next week. Same time, same place. Well, or whenever you decide to listen to the next episode. It'll be out next week. So until then, Ash, have yourself a good week, and listeners, you too.
And all our listeners can send me their birthday wishes whenever they like, given that today's my birthday. But hey, we'll just leave it there.
Happy birthday.
See you next week, James.
Bye,
Bye, everyone.